So when we have a downside to our foreign policy, even though we have to defend ourselves against these violent attacks on us, and that is recognizable, but that should never divert us from the more serious thought about how do we get ourselves into those situations that precipitates this act of violence against us. Because once there's a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11, you can't just say, oh, well, let's forget about it. We can't do that. But we should keep our eye on the ball, and we should ask the serious questions about how this came about. Could it have been prevented? And what can we do to end the mess that we have now? And how can we keep this from happening anymore? I've talked a lot about what's going on in Iraq, on the debates, as well as many, many hours on the House floor for many, many years. A lot of times I'll be interviewed by a TV commentator, and they might not be up to date on exactly what my positions have been over the year. And they say, well, did you vote against the war? And of course, the real answer is, I voted against the war probably 15 years before it started. And because we were looking for trouble for a long time, even with the Persian Gulf War, which is really the beginning of this war over here, which was the beginning of the 9/11 episode, because we went in there. It was a terrible thing that was happening over there, but we went over there to protect our oil. And of course, what did we do? We left some troops in Saudi Arabia, and guess what? Our old ally Ben Laden turned against us. Can you imagine that? Here we had been his friend and helped him when he was trying to chase out those Russians out of Afghanistan, and now we're in his country, his home country, and we have a big military base on their land, which they consider holy land, and they highly resented it. So this was just stirring up trouble. And then, of course, after we chased the Iraqis out of Kuwait, we continued a bombing episode for years after years after years. And then, of course, in 1998 was when I really began to speak out about the coming bigger war. And the Clinton administration had the Congress vote on what they call the Iraq Liberation Act. And this was brought up under suspension. It was supposed to sail right through, and nobody was supposed to say a word about it. It was just to say, he's a bad guy, and our policy now is for regime change in Iraq. Of course, there was no evidence that Iraq had done a single thing to us. He was no threat to us. He had no capability of ever attacking us. But we as a country accepted this recommendation from the administration that we would now work for regime change in Iraq. And I spoke out against it because it was under suspension. Because it was under suspensions and both parties supported the war, this proposal to eliminate Saddam Hussein, I got the 20 minutes in opposition against the rest of them who had 20 minutes to divide up among all of them. So, it gave me a chance to express myself and make a record. Unfortunately, I didn't persuade a lot of people. But that's the way it works. It takes a long time for them to agitate and promote the war propaganda, convince the people of falsehoods and scare the people. And of course, it eventually came. And if you check the record between 98 and 2003, I did my very best. Matter of fact, when it came to the International Relations Committee, I obviously took the stand. I had been talking about for 5 years, we don't need to go to war, we shouldn't go to war. But I said to the committee, I said, if you think you should go to war, what you should do is do it in the proper manner. What you should do is have a vote on an up or down declaration of war or not.